Robert Frank was born in Zurich in 1924. He moved to America in 1947 and is one of the most influential photographers ever. He photographed in London between 1951 and 1953. I will explore how this work marks a stepping stone on Frank's rapid evolution towards the making of his seminal photo essay, The Americans. He made two bodies of work in the United Kingdom, the one mainly in the village of Cairo in Wales, and the other on the streets of London's financial district. These seemingly parallel bodies of work are, however, quite far apart, and it's this difference that gives us insight into the development of Frank's photographic approach that led to the making of his most famous essay. Just 2 years after completing the London-Wales work, Robert Frank left New York in a second-hand Ford business coupe to begin making the photographs that eventually became The Americans. The year was 1955. Robert Frank was a fast learner. He began studying photography in 1941 and spent the next 6 years working for commercial photography and graphic design studios in Switzerland. He moved to New York in 1947, and soon after he was hired by Harper's Bazaar to produce fashion photographs. Frank quickly found the work and the atmosphere at the magazine stultifying. He quit later the same year. He was trying to find an approach to photography that would give him the freedom to express himself, but at this time he hadn't found his unique voice yet. When looking at his photographs taken in Cairo, Wales, he was trying to produce a Life magazine-type photo essay. He would have been aware of an essay focusing on the same subject by Eugene Smith. In terms of this photojournalistic genre, Smith had definitely found his niche, and his work follows the narrative structure that was popular with picture-driven publications. In this respect, Smith's work is in a different league to Frank's. Life magazine printed Smith's essay, while Frank's was only published in 1955 in US Camera magazine. Frank was exploring the medium, and he was producing raw, free-flowing compositions. The images made in Wales are far grittier than the London work. The work centered around one miner, Ben James, and his family became the subject of a picture essay. Frank intended the essay to be a kind of day-in-the-life narrative, a sort of visual diary of a working man. He later said about this work that these photographs were his only attempt ever to shape a story. Frank was obviously experimenting with different approaches at the time, and one can see in the London work, the work is far more metaphorical. He's capturing bankers dressed in immaculate clothing as they walk around the grimy, fog-filled streets of London. He's making a social commentary on the self-satisfied rich elite trying to elevate themselves above the harsh environment in which they live and work. These bankers are also worlds apart from the working-class miners of Wales. The London-Wales work demonstrates his early interest in social commentary. He would remain skeptical about society, and he was very aware of class, race, and wealth disparities. In the Americans' work, these themes appear often. This type of image would in time become a cliché, but when he took the photograph, it was a highly charged statement. The sequencing of these two images in the book is also not by chance. I think the London images were probably far more revealing of what was to follow from Frank, because he had freed himself from the narrative structure and he was able to communicate mood, feelings, and beauty in a very personal manner. This image of a hearse and a running child has a very Cartier-Bresson feel, in that it's a beautifully composed story within one photograph. This image contains an obvious message. The image is cut down the middle, and you have a banker scuttling past a man hauling coal. Most of the other images are far more expressionistic, but they still contain a sting. One is constantly aware of his disapproval of the wealthy. This work and The Americans is filled with images that illustrate his dislike of hypocrisy and sentimentality. 6 of the 83 photographs in his famous US work contain American flags, and all of them appear ironically. Comparing the London and Welsh photographs, Frank seldom shows bankers' faces. The bankers are often photographed from behind, And the effect of this is that we are distanced from the bankers. It suggests that they are intimidating, unapproachable, scary, while the images of the miners are intimate and the subjects' faces are clearly captured with empathy. This obviously allows us to connect with his subjects. As with his American work, we as viewers are made aware of his subjective viewpoints, but he communicates them in a seemingly objective, detached manner. They are often beautiful as compositions or contain poetic gestures, but they simultaneously manage to strike a body blow to one's senses. A strong influence on Frank at the time was the beat hipster movement in the US. The art associated with this movement was challenging of the established order, but they also considered themselves to be outsiders, and that society was somewhat absurd. A major shift between the London Wales work and the Americans' work was that he moved away from the straightforward commentary of rich and powerful versus working class and poor to a broader statement about his disillusionment with the American dream. What is so remarkable about Robert Frank is how rapidly adapted his approach to photographing. Within 10 years, he transformed from being an immigrant fashion photographer to redefining photography as a whole. After completing his seminal book, The Americans, Frank went on to produce a number of movies and then concentrated on mainly experimental photographic work. Robert Frank passed away in September 2019. I hope you enjoyed that video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.